On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, the Bills game came down to the wire. Sarge and I talk about how we got there in the first place and how the Houston Texans can look back and figure out how to become a four-quarter team.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Texans podcast. On today's show, we'll talk about the first half of the Houston Texans game where it looked like it was directed by 50 Cent, power. And the second half looked like he got ghosted on the second date from a dating app. Ugly wins matter as well, John.
Yes, it does. Yes, they do, according to D'Amico Ryans. And today's episode is brought to you by none other than LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Terms and conditions apply. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. And as always, shout out to our everydayers coming back to continue to listen to the Locked On Texans podcast with me, John Some Sports Guy Hickman, and Brian Big Sarge Bearfield. We were at the Houston Texans versus the Buffalo Bills game. And before we even talk about the game in itself, let me just say this. Texans fans, stop mortgaging, stop selling, stop giving away your tickets because, Sarge, how many times on 3rd and long did we hear Buffalo Bills fans in that stadium going crazy?
Thought I was at Orchard Park.
Okay. We got to do better, Texans fans. But speaking of doing better, we got to look at the first half, right? 23-20 victory over the Buffalo Bills. And let me just give you guys some numbers in this entirety. CJ Stroud, another 300-yard performance, 28 of 38, 331, 1 TD, 1 interception, sack one time, QBR of 78.5, quarterback rating of 97.6. The Houston Texans ran the ball for 3.4 yards per carry, 94 yards total on the day. After catching a bomb early, Nico Collins, 2 catches, 78 yards, but after that touchdown, went out with a hamstring injury. So now you had Stefon Diggs in the quote-unquote revenge game, 6 catches, 82 yards for the Houston Texans on the day. And if y'all would have taken that bet Big Sarge and I had the other day, the over-under on what Dare was going to do in the passing game, you would have won some money. 6 catches, 57 yards on the air. Azeez Al-Shaair, 8 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Defensively, I can't wait to highlight those guys. But when we look at this team and we look at the breakdown of the Houston Texans so far during this season, the first half performances by this team has been, I think, what everybody is looking forward to. So before we dive into the second half, Big Sarge, first half for the Houston Texans versus the Bills, what are some of your takeaways?
I didn't like the first drive of the game because it seemed like they were going to get stuck back into that same old rut that they always do, run, right? And I get it. Their first possession, they were backed up into they were backed up onto their own inside their own 20-yard line. So it didn't look good. I did not like that. But that second drive where I think that it went for 6 plays, 70 yards, that ended up in a touchdown. And then the next drive after that, 1 play, 67-yard bomb from CJ Stroud to Nico Collins. You're thinking to yourself, they finally are starting to get it. Now Bobby is starting to sequence the plays better. In that second touchdown drive they had, that 6-play drive, 3 passes, 3 runs. I like the way that they did that on that touchdown run. It looked beautiful the way they blocked it up. You got blocks from both of the tight ends and Dalton Schultz coming out of the backfield, Kay Stover coming in motion, picking up, and it was just a good run by Cam Akers. That next drive, it turned it over on downs, but I think they still had the ball for 11 plays. And I felt like D'Amico should have challenged that third down catch
Spotted the ball.
I thought that he should have challenged that, but then he didn't. They went for it on 4th down. And I'm saying to myself, not that play. If any plays, it should have been play action fake, get somebody into the flats. And I know it's easy for me to say because, I played Madden once 13 times before. So, yeah, of course, I can call plays on Madden. But when you're looking at this game, and you got the Buffalo Bills expecting a run up the middle, a quarterback sneak. Man, that's the time where offensive coordinators say, okay, well, if we got to turn the ball over on downs, I'm going to turn it over my way. Man, right. A perfect play action would have worked well there, especially when you got Dalton Schultz and you got Cade Stover. So, I can't get mad at them on that. They ended the half with a field goal. And so 17 first half points is something that you really, want to see, especially the way that they looked in that Minnesota game 2 weeks ago, not scoring anything. And then last week against Jacksonville. So you, at that point, you're thinking to yourself, hey, they got it going.
When I look at this game in the first half, last week, going into the weekend, we talked about trends that we needed to see the Houston Texans either continue to stack good moments from prior games. They didn't, looking back at the Jaguars game, how can they stack some of those good moments and those trends to help them pull this game out? And one of the things that I talked about through 4 weeks, the Texans have had 0 points on 12 drives after the defense scored or forced a punt or no score. They had 17 points off of punts or holding the Bills to a field goal. So that was a good thing to see from the Houston Texans in their first half, right? Also, if you take away the first drive where it resulted in a field goal for the Buffalo Bills, James Cook ran the ball for 23 yards, gave Buffalo some good rushing opportunities in that first drive. He ran the ball for 20 yards on 8 carries for 2.5 yards per carry for the rest of the half. And also, we talked about, hey, listen, you don't need a lot of long, drawn-up plays. Yeah, we can talk about the 67-yard bomb to Nico Collins for a TD, but I thought for the most part, C.J. Stroud and that offense and Bobby Sloyd for this half, the first half, I thought they did a good job of getting the ball out quickly and taking advantage of what the defense gave them. Also, just getting the running backs involved in the passing game, something that Sarge, you and I highlighted. The Buffalo Bills have been allowing teams to dump it off to their running back, and they've been kind of effective. The opposing offenses have been effective in a sense. Also, better performance from Juice Scruggs, which led to a more noticeable, immediately performance from Kenyon Green. I thought that he was stacking some good moments last week, and that carried over to the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills were held to 3 of 9 on third downs, and the Texans forced 3 and outs. Of course, in that first half, Azeez Al-Shaair dropped a couple of picks. But the story of the first half, really, we got to include it because that's been the talking point through 4 weeks, no penalties.
Yeah.
So you look at the Houston Texans probably playing their best brand of football since the Indianapolis Colts game, and they were able to put it all together in their first half.
John, let's not forget the fact that CJ was 10 for 10 for 177 yards. Didn't throw his first incompletion till late in the second half.
Yeah.
And so when you got your quarterback, going like that, and you get him into a rhythm. He got into one thing that I like seeing about CJ Stroud. He got into a rhythm in the first half. And when you get him in rhythm, especially when you have a quarterback like that, you allow him to get in that rhythm and get going. That's when we started to see that offense move. And you brought up something earlier. Yes, no penalties allowed them to sustain drives. Even in that 11 play drive that they had to turnover on downs, no penalties, which allowed them to sustain drives.
Yeah. Also, let's take a look at this. We talked about, hey, you going up against Josh Allen, and even D'Amico Ryan said it in the post-game press conference. And I asked him a question like, how did you guys, going up against a player like Josh Allen, what was the game plan for the week? And he said limiting Josh Allen, who was a great player, is a tough out for us. He took a violent effort. It took a violent effort, from everybody. It was a collective effort. D-line knew we weren't going to get a lot of sacks against him because he's so elusive in the pocket. But he continued it by saying we had to keep rushing and keep pressure on him. They did a great job, actually, keeping the pressure on him. The guys on our back end, the way that they cover, That was the reason why we played tight coverage and made the plays we needed to make. It was a collective effort of rush and coverage being tied together, which is exactly what you want through 4 quarters. And that's exactly what the Houston Texans defense, for the most part, gave their team with that effort, containing Josh Allen to lead him to going 9 for 30 on a day. Like that's numbers from Josh Allen we don't see typically in the last couple of seasons. And I wanted to give credit to players like a Khalil Davis in that first half, who was able to get some pressure up front. Henry T creating some of that pressure up front. And no, it didn't always result in a sack. I think Josh Allen got sacked. If I could take a look at the numbers here before we close out.
He only got sacked one time.
Only got sacked one time. But Sarge, how many of those pressures up the middle? And what we talked about last week, hey, this is a team right now, because they don't have the vertical threats at receivers, and Josh Allen missed a couple of passes, got behind some of the rookies, and I know he'll want those back. But for the most part, this offense has been 10 and under. That's where we're going to hurt teams at offensively.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What did I say? Hey, listen, the Texans got to create that pressure up front. They got to collapse that pocket and take away those quick reads and force Josh Allen to bring the ball back down and try to create opportunities from outside of the pocket. And that's what you saw. Credit to Khalil Davis. Credit to Henry T on some of those blitzes. And credit to the defensive line, creating pressure with a lot of those stunts that they were able to perform well versus the Buffalo Bills.
I was going to say this. Well, I'm going to have to push back a little bit. Because yes, I think that the defense played well, and it looked worse than what it actually was in that first half. It was like, wow, why can't they stop Buffalo? And they were actually stopping Buffalo. But the pushback from me is going to be, I need to see more from rookies, Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock. And in that
they've been having some opportunities that, if it would have went the other way, we're not looking at a 4-1 team.
Kalen Bullock, the one thing that hurts him is one of his best attributes. We know that he's very athletic, and we know that he's a ball hawk. But being a ball hawk like that sometimes gets you to bite on certain moves. He allows receivers to get behind him on double moves, because if the Texas defense don't get pressure on one of those plays, the
Mac Hollins, it could have been Mac Hollins,
wide open, and he bit on the first play. And I'll put it like this, and I know how people get upset when we talk about that other team up 45 with the Dallas Cowboys, but if you look at Stefon Diggs, a cornerback, all-pro cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys, he do the same thing, but he's a ball hawk. So that first move that he sees, he's like, yo, if I jump this quick enough, I can get that interception. So what Kalen Bullock is going to have to do, especially, going into the second quarter of this season, you're going to have to dial it back just a second, because teams are starting to try to beat you on double moves.
Yeah, just a little bit more discipline. And those guys are learning that, right? And I think because of the pressure, they were able to they weren't able to afford it, but that's something that's a learning lesson that throughout this week. Hey, listen, an inch away, we could have been looking at a different game, right? The game is about inches. So we got to talk about the second half, Sarge.
Oh, for sure.
We got to talk about the second half, and why in the world does it seem so hard for Houston to score points in quarters 3 and 4? Guys, this is a perfect opportunity to tell you about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is always looking out for our small business owners out there. If you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They have all of the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who are not actively searching for a new job or might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free Terms and conditions apply. And this is also a great time to tell you guys about BetterHelp. What scares you the most? It could be big, it could be small, and it could be Halloween. Some of y'all may be in fear of clowns, right? But we know that's kind of in good fun. But what about those fears that don't involve zombies or ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. You do not want to do that. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist today and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
And welcome back to Monday's edition of the Locked On Texans podcast. For as much as we love the first half, John, that second half, listen, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Groundhog Day. Have you ever seen the movie Groundhog Day?
I have not.
With Bill Murray. So he is, so you know what Groundhog Day is. You know, they wait for see if the groundhog going to see his shadow. And that's going to predict if we're going to have 6 more months of winter, 6 more months of summer, whatever the case may be. Well, in the movie, Bill Murray kept reliving the same day over and over again, right? The same day, just different occurrences. So as that day plays out, he'll go to sleep, wake up. It'll be the exact same day. It just different events happen. John, I've been feeling like I have been stuck in the movie Groundhog Day at NRG Stadium since the Chicago Bears game. Because see how Chicago Bears game ended, right? Seeing how the Jacksonville Jaguars game ended, right? Buffalo Bills game.
Same way.
I promise you, I feel like I'm living the exact same day, just with different teams over and over and over again. And you and I discussed this last week on the podcast. What is going on in the second half?
5.7 points in the second half since the Indianapolis Colts game.
Right. And when I look at it, I'm saying to myself, something has got to give. When you look at, when you look at a coach, when you look at a coach like Bill Belichick, right? Former New England Patriots coach. One thing that he prided himself on is being able to go in and make the second half adjustments. Being able to take everything from the first half and say, all right, cool, we did that. Now let's switch it up. That's why so many people hated him and hated the Patriots, because they could switch it up. You even look at coaches like Kyle Shanahan. They switch it up. Bobby is taking that first half playbook and coming into the second half and be like, all right, guys, we don't need to do nothing else. Some be like, Bobby, you got to have 2 different playbooks. I'm not the only one that sees that. D'Amico Ryan sees that as well. He said that in his Monday post-game press conference last week. And John, like I said, the more things change, the more things stay the same. This second half of this Houston Texans offense is starting to be, it's putrid. I'm just going to go ahead and call it what it is, John. It's putrid. And we can hear all the excuses about not having the running backs, and we lost Nico. But what does that say about all the other games when you're coming in the second half? You're just not getting it done. It happened again today, John. That offense looked horrible in the second half. I think they had 7 possessions, right? They had 7 possessions. And what do you have in that possessions? You had a fumble, an interception by CJ. Looked bad.
When we talk about that second half, I think that is something to highlight. Back-to-back fumble and interception. Hey, I can't put that on Bobby Sloyd. That was just 2 uncharacteristic plays by CJ Stroud, especially that interception.
And not that intentional grounding, that's not on Bobby either. But the play calling, it got stale, like it has been throughout the second half of these other games. My issue and my problem when it comes to the second half offense for the Houston Texans, and I seen it again on Sunday, it's no creativity, John. No creativity, no switching. No.
Yeah, and it feels like when he does get creative, it's with the wrong personnel.
Yeah,
Like,
jet sweep.
yeah, the jet sweeps and everything. I think for me, when I look at the second half, the my biggest takeaway coming out of it is the Texans are just shooting themselves in the foot.
Yep.
Like that was a half where, man, I could put a lot of blame on Bobby, right? We could do that. And I do want to say the offensive line played much better this game. Much better this game. No Ed Oliver, no Von Miller. So I think that was expected. But you got to give credit where credit is due. Two Scruggs again, I think he played better. We didn't hear from Laramie Tunsil, so you know that's a good game for Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah.
But we can put some blame on Bobby, rightfully so. And I think you can look at certain plays, certain drives throughout the entire game and say, okay, well, Bobby, you kind of held this team back in that sequence. But in that second half, I do put some blame on uh, CJ Stroud.
Yes.
And I think it's fair. Look, that interception, we all was like, what? And then Sarge, you went back to go watch it, and you just saw the ball kind of come out before it probably should have.
Yeah.
And then the fumble, we don't see CJ fumble the ball like that. That's very uncharacteristic of him. And so if you look at those two plays alone, you're looking at two drive stoppers, two turnovers to the Buffalo Bills that at one point was mounting a comeback, right? And I think overall, when we look at that team in the second half, it comes down to, as a whole, offensively, you got to learn how to finish the game. Keep the gas on the pedal. Keep going. And it seems like when they come out in all of these second halves, even Sunday's performance against the Buffalo Bills, they just come out lackadaisical.
Yes.
And that's hurting them. That's going to continue to hurt them if they play good teams. The Buffalo Bills was a good team, came into this game 3-1, and made it a game at one point.
Yeah.
So that's the issue that I have with the Houston Texans in totality. The second half for a lot of these games have been so flat and so lackadaisical that they are handing opportunities over to the opposing teams to make it a game. And then not to mention today, two turnovers. Very uncharacteristic turnovers by CJ Stroud.
Yeah, but I will say this too, John, and I once again, you know what? So the offensive line gave up 1 sack. But John, every time I looked around, man, somebody was in the backfield with CJ. Now, wait a minute. Not on the interception. CJ had enough time. He did not lead Diggs. He threw the ball behind the receiver. If he leads him, throws it in front, it's not interception, but he threw it behind him, which I'm saying to myself, that's very uncharacteristic of him. But on the fumble, it was too much traffic around him in the backfield. On the intentional grounding, too much. It was too many times where CJ had too many people around him. Now, don't get me wrong, the offensive line didn't play terrible. I would like to see them clean up the pocket just a little bit more. And I know that CJ has been, when you look at the numbers, he has a lot of time to throw, but some of that is because he's scrambling out of the pocket, which side note, I'm so glad to see him today.
Utilize it.
Yes. Utilize his legs and say, yeah, CJ, you can run the ball as well. I really like that. But I just, John, and like I said, it's very uncharacteristic that we see CJ turn the ball over like that. It's very uncharacteristic that we see him do intentional grounding like he did towards the end of the game. But what I will say is that he was out of rhythm. And that's what I was saying. In that first half, he was in rhythm. And that's why you see him go 10 for 10. Then that second
it felt
half,
like the tempo in the first half.
Yes.
Had a little bit more fire under that ass than it did in the second half.
Facts. And that's what I'm saying, man. And then if you got to keep relying on your field goal kicker to save you in the second half and win games for you.
Shout out to Fairbairn.
Yeah, there's some issues. There's some issues going on that they need to talk about. And I really would like to know. I would really like to be sitting in that room and finding out, hey, what's going on? Like, yes, I know you have to run the ball. I get that. I'm not one of them people who scream CJ needs to throw the ball 60 times a game. I'm not saying that. You got to have some type of balance. But at some point, you have got to let your potential Hall of Fame quarterback go. Be like, look, I know it's your second year, but you are different. So let's go ahead and put the biscuit in the basket.
I thought if we look at the offensive line play, right, no Titus Howard, Blake Fisher, he's a rookie in this show.
Yep.
Also, Shaq Mason, the vet, he's getting older and is showing. This is not his first game where we're in the press box and I'm looking over. I'm like, hey man, Shaq Mason looks a little old.
Yeah.
So, but I like the performances from the left side because I think that's this team's strong side.
Yeah.
And they could potentially, especially when Joe Mixon comes back, that talent on that side of the ball, from Juice on over to Laramie Tunsil, can potentially kind of help erase some of the deficiencies on the right side of the ball, whether it's Titus Howard, Blake Fisher, or just Shaq Mason kind of getting up in age and showing that he's a little bit slower and lacks the power that he had previously. So for the Houston Texans, it's still a good win for them. But some of y'all may just say it should have never came down to that close. It shouldn't have came down to the wire. I thought this was going to be the first time they were going to drop 30 points.
John, you see 17 points at the half. You saying to yourself, oh, yeah, if they can't get at least 13 more points in the second half against a Bills team who, look, side note, Josh Allen didn't look like Josh Allen today.
9 of 30.
Sunday. He did not on Sunday. He did not look like Josh Allen did. Like, what he had 30% passing. Yeah, I think he was 30% on the day. And kudos to the Houston Texans defense. But when you got Josh Allen playing that bad, your defense playing that good, your offense should say, hey, get us the ball back. Watch this. Ooh, y'all did it again. Give us the ball back. And even if that meant taking some field goals, then coming back, scoring touchdowns, there's no possible way that we look at that first half and the amount of points they scored, and then the second half, you saying to yourself, what? Yeah. What is this? No. Yeah. What is this?
But you know what? All wins matter. The pretty ones, the beautiful ones, the Beyonce wins, even them ugly wins, they all matter. So we'll talk about that before we close out today's show. But ladies and gentlemen, before we do that, FanDuel has an amazing opportunity for you guys right now, Texans fans. You can start this season, if you already have not, with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play, so you know much more. Your knowledge is on point. You can do all of that on the same place where you make your bets. And today, if you get started for your first time, FanDuel is hooking you up with a $200 bonus bet guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Why are you waiting? Don't wait anymore. Check out FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. It's John, some sports guy Hickman. It's Big Sarge. We're talking Texans, and before we close out, no ugly wins, no pretty wins. All wins matter. According to D'Amico Ryans, head coach of the Houston Texans, ugly wins matter too, Sarge.
UGLY. You ain't got no alibi. You ugly. Hey, you ugly. Hey, listen. In the win-loss column, there is no there is no ugly wins, pretty wins, ugly losses, pretty losses. A win is a win and a loss is a loss. But sometimes, and I know ugly wins matter too. Yes, they're 4-1 on the season. It looks great. After 5 games, no one really had the Texans being 4-1. If anything, they 3-2. Hey, maybe a loss to the Minnesota Vikings. They're a formidable team. Maybe a loss to the Buffalo Bills. They're a formidable team. 5 games, 4-1. I got it, right? I got it. The optics look bad, John. It's the optics of it. And how many times are you going to have to depend on, ugliness coming through for you? Sometimes you want pretty to come through for you too. You want beautiful to come through for you too. You want exhilarating, exciting. All
so you're saying the Texans been taking one for the team since the Colts game.
Right. Yes. wingmans. But anyway, look, wingmans for real. That's the Texans being wingman. But no, I want to see. Okay, I've got it. In the first 5 games of 2024, I get it. Y'all can win ugly. Hey, can I see y'all win pretty though? Like, show me what a pretty win looks like. Like, show me what the beauty queen looks like, what the pageant winner looks like. Show me that win. I want to see that because I know that you can win these games. I know you're tough, and I know you can tough out these games. I know you can tough out a win. How about you let us see how it looks when you can make it easy on yourself?
Right.
How about you don't have to depend on Kaimi Fairbairn's leg to get you through every victory? How about you just say, hey, look, this time, Kaimi, the only time we're going to need you is when it's time to kick the extra point. Hey, Tommy, we ain't going to need you, brother, till like the second half when we trying to run out the clock. Today, we're going in and we saying we going to make sure that we don't have to depend on anything going in our favor. Because even in the ugly win on Sunday, they had to depend on Sean McDermott passing the ball out of the end zone.
Was that the most ridiculous thing? I leaned over to both you and Miss Kim Davis. I said, they just stopped the clock twice. The Texans got 3 timeouts.
Right.
They can go win this game if they force another play or force another bad play. And that's what happened. I thought that was some of the most ridiculous sequences of play calling that we saw.
And, John, especially when you're dealing with a quarterback who has concussion-like symptoms. Especially when your quarterback is seeing ghosts just on his own in the huddle. Because right. And so now you're going to put the game in his hands and you're going to pass and you're going to give the Texans that opportunity to get the ball back. What I really think is that they didn't scout Kaimi Fairbairn well enough to know that he could hit from that far. And that punt return that they got, hey, look, that was a good one. That pass that improvised that Stroud did to Dare, that was good. But I mean, you can't depend on Sean McDermott is going to give you that. You can't depend on your defense always going out there and making a stop. You want them to. So let's just see the pretty ones. We see the ugly ones. Let's see the pretty ones.
They need a pretty win.
Yes.
They had one. They as of today, the Texans have not had a pretty 4-quarter win. They've had some good halves, some damn good halves.
Yep.
Have not been able to put together on all 3 phases for 4 quarters. And I think we got to, before we get up out of here, I think we do got to judge the team a little bit differently because they have not made it to the championship game yet. So those expectations for this team is still get there before we can view you a little bit differently. However, I think coming through our eyes, I got 4, you got 2. So through our 6 eyes, we're looking at a team that we scouted and looked at during preseason training camp, and we know what they do well. It just seems like they continue to get in their own way, and they're not able to get those pretty wins.
Yeah. And John,
AKAs and the Delta's not coming over to the kickback. You stuck with the
no.
I ain't gonna do it.
No. You stuck with who you stuck with. How about
you stuck with who you stuck with, but y'all stuck with us because we got more Locked On Texans throughout the week. We got more Texans talk throughout the week because Sarge, what we have to do is highlight another great performance on the lowest of keys from Aziz and Derek Stingley.
A sick Aziz.
A sick Aziz. The flu game Aziz. So we got to talk about
10
that.
pounds in one night, Aziz.
I need that. That's it. Ozempic.
You got that Azizic.
That's what you got. But we got more Locked On Texans throughout the week. Follow me on Twitter at John, some sports guy Hickman. John_Hickman 12 on Twitter. Make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube as well.
And you can follow me at Big Sarge Sports with a Z at the end on the app formerly known as Twitter.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, do us a favor. Peace and love.